Okay, so now let's get started on our first video. And we're going to be doing RPG Maker VX Ace. And I'm going to assume that you've already installed it or you got the program somehow, either through Steam or through the website. But just go ahead and open the program and we're gonna have a brief overview of the basic operations of everything. Now, if you have a project already loaded, it's going to automatically load your previously opened project. But if you're opening it for the first time or want to create a new project, go to File, New Project, and give your project a name. And if you type something in, it should automatically fill in your game title as well. So I would just, for the sake of learning, I guess, I'll call it Game 10. Then press OK. Now once you do, everything is set back to default. So this is literally a blank project. If you try to test play this right now, nothing's going to happen. But before we do anything else, let me turn down the sound for this project. That way, when we do a test play, it doesn't blow up your speakers. Give me 1 second. Title screen. I'll bring that all the way down. You know what? Turn it off. Okay. And so, a few basic things. There's a bunch of tooltips at the top. They're quite self-explanatory in what they do. They're basically shortcuts of the actual tooltips above. So your scale is obviously, well, match up the icons, tools, databases, and so forth. So this is, it doesn't really matter what option you use to actually get to these options. You could use the shortcut keys like F9, F10, F11, or just the tooltip keys up here. But the main one you're probably going to be using is database, which is F9, and playtest, which is F12. And so if you hit playtest right now and save changes to your game will automatically start, and you'll be able to actually play your game. Now, obviously there's nothing in this game that is actually feasible or that would work, so let's go ahead and close this out. Now, let's start labeling a few areas. This is going to be your project window, so you can see your maps and properties of your maps and your game. This is going to be your map area, and this will be your tile set area, I guess. Now, I'm really using those terms quite loosely, but your maps have different layers to them. You have the actual map creation layer, I guess, and then you have the event layer. Now, again, think of it like pancakes. You have two layers. The bottom layer is your actual map, but the top layer is what your character will interact with. So different NPCs, different characters, events, objects. So objects like rocks, treasure chests, coins even if they want to pick it up, shopkeeps, everything like that. And you can also make different items or different tile set items and I mean these items, event objects, and we'll get into that a little later. But to switch that, it's going to be your F5 and F6 key. And when you switch it to the event view, you'll notice that there is a grid, and you can move anything that's already on this grid. And so if we move our character, say, to the top right when you start your game, your character will be at the very top right. Now, obviously, you can't really walk on water, so nothing will really happen. Now, the game is already done for you, at least all the harder stuff. Everything that's already pre-compacted with the game becomes already complete. And what I mean by this is that if you draw, let's switch back to our map view, by the way, by pressing F5 or at the very top left. If you give it some grass, and you know what, let's put some mountains in the middle and actually test play this. You'll notice that the character is already walking when you press down, left, up, right, or anything like that. And you'll even notice when you hold shift, your character will start running. And there's already a built-in menu system with item skills and all that stuff. But again, this is all part of the game that's already pre-configured for you. And you'll notice that when you try to run into the mountains, your character stops. So even collisions are done for you already. Now, of course, you could import and export your own collisions or your own tile sets, but you do have to manually set the collisions on those. And again, another topic for another video. But now that you have just the general idea of at least the tooltips, the map, and the event pane, let's talk a little bit about the tile sets on the left side. You'll notice that you have an A and a B function. Now, again, this is another layer. This is still below the event layer. So again, if this lava-ish land is the tile sets, and this, I'd say this waterfall thing would be the event layer. The event layer is always on top. It is literally the topmost preceding layer that you'll have. But if you have an event that covers these two, like it's an object that covers the entire screen, you won't see these two layers. And these two layers right here are the A and the B. And so A being the bottom one, B being the middle one. So if there is something covering B, if you wanted to see like the trees that are under A, you won't be able to see them because you have another layer covering that. And it'll start making sense as you start using the program a little bit more. But anyways, if you switch to B, you'll notice that you have more objects that you could work with. And again, of course, you could import more objects as time goes by. But for now, let's just use whatever's in the program that's already provided for us. And to paste some of these items into your map, you could use some of these draw tools at the very top, either the pencil, the square, rectangle, or the fill. It's quite self-explanatory what these do. Again, with the pencil, you could just draw your object in. With the square, you could just you could drag and drop your object in. Circle. That wasn't the circle. That's the circle. And fill. Now, this is a neat little function, though, a neat little tool called the shadow pen, though. So in this version, you can now manually add shadows to objects, and which is pretty cool, but you'd have to really know what you're doing to actually use it. So you could, for the most part, you could ignore it, because again, the program already does that for you. But let's go ahead and clear this out. Oh, there you go. And let's make a basic map. But before we do, this looks like a tile set that's really set for an overworld. Let's change that to something like a town. And that's controlled by your map properties. So to get to that, at the very bottom left, you go to your or select the map that you are currently on or want to edit, and go to Map Properties. And then on the left side of that, you should see Tile Set. If you click on it, you'll have different fields: dungeon, interior, exterior, and field. Again, this is all already pre-programmed into the program, so if you want a more exterior tile set, you could go and select that. And even here, you could change the name, whether or not it's going to scroll from the left to right or from all directions, kind of like a world map. You could set what enemies or mobs that you enter at this in this particular map. Parallax backgrounds, we'll talk about that way later. Well, not I really do mean way later. And of course the music that's associated with this map as well. Again, there's already some that come with the actual program. But for the sake of this video, and so I don't kill your speakers, I'm not going to set any music. But let's go ahead and increase the size of this map by adjusting the width and the height. I'm going to increase that to 50. And press OK. And you'll notice that there's some colored in space and some checkered space. Now, checkered means that it's transparent. Anywhere you see that checkered, it's transparent, and if you don't have anything on top or bottom of that transparency, it shows up as black. And as an example, we'll go and playtest our game again. And you'll notice that now the character has something on the bottom and left of him, which is basically black. So if you have an item that doesn't really have a background to it, kind of like how you have a full set with these terrain tile sets, you you'll have an object that that's more better to use as a layered object. So a terrain object would be pretty much your first layer in A, and then you would stack different types of tile sets on this in B and C. And for example, like this block of wood, you'll see that it sits on top of your tile now, and I'll put it on top of the transparency just so you can see how it looks. And let's just add a few more items just so you can see how transparency looks in this game. And we'll test play again. And so you'll see that, again, I can't collide with it. It stops you. And on the right side, you can see the terrain that we've added, including on that cross, on that block of wood, and those bushes. You see that it's not fully colored in. So again, it's great for layering different objects. But let's go ahead and get rid of that. Let's select the blank transparency tile and just delete that. And let's go ahead and fill with the fill tool some grass, and let's create a very basic building. And you'll see that you have different types of walls that you could use here. These tiles are fairly smart, so if you do end up making kind of like an elaborate design, it'll automatically fill for you. So even though your tile only looks like it's one square, it does fill up to, I believe, a 3x3 square perfectly fine. In fact, you could even make it larger, and it does do the autofill for you. But of course, that there are some objects that you do need to keep in mind of, like this grass object that has dirt around it. You'd have to select the appropriate tile set that does belong with that, just so you could pair it a little bit more neatly. In fact, that doesn't look half bad either. Let's go and just play with that. So I'm going to use the pencil tool just to blot out some of this grass. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to select a wall tile. And, well, this is a desert, so let's go for something that has more rocks or sands in it. Okay, and you can see that it's already creating the shadow for you. And then I like to call this, or at least the object on top of the wall, kind of like a ceiling tile. And what I mean by that is, if you'll notice that you have this tile that looks like 4 little corners, but watch what happens when you extend that out. It actually opens up. Okay, so if you select a ceiling tile, you could kind of get like a wall or a ceiling, top of a ceiling. It gives it a nice 3D effect. And what's really cool is with these that you'll automatically, or your character will pass under the topmost tile. So again, you do have a sense of depth. And we'll test play another game. And you'll see, of course, my character doesn't pass under it. Just kidding. We'll get to that in a minute. But you do get to see that the object that we created right behind us does show up there. But let's go and continue to develop this map a bit. We're going to add a fence. That's too ugly. And then I'm going to add some water. Let's find some water. Okay. And let's move to a different layer. Let's give this a pub symbol. And let's add some vegetation as well. You know what? Add some random rocks just because, you know, desert, whatever. Give it some wood. Shut up. Some boxes. Well, it's a desert, so you wouldn't find any green vegetation. Well, cactus. Put that around there. Some dead trees. Oop. Okay. And you know what? We'll put a tent. Put some objects in the water. And let's move on to the next layer as well. Let's see what else is here. Now, these are actual ceiling tiles, so you could actually use this in conjunction with whatever you have. I mean, the real ceiling tiles that are actually layered, so I bet you anything that your character will pass under this one instead. But you have to be a little smart about it, so because it's not going to automatically conform to your objects, you do have to kind of play around with it, really mess with it, just so you could get a nice even square. And as you can see, all I'm doing is I'm using the rectangle or the rectangle tool to plaster this on it, and that looks good. Okay. And you know what? Let's make it a little more fancier. That looks ugly. Let's do wood. And I don't like that fence, so I'm going to get rid of that. I have to use the same tile. That's not the same tile. There you go. And you know what? Let's add... Okay, nope, I have to use this one. Let's add some stone. And add some more water too. Again, and all we're doing is I'm screwing around. And let's test play, see how this looks. Okay, so here's our house. Let's see if the collision works. If we pass under it. There you go. And as you can see at the very top, my character is passing under the ceiling. Character stops when you hit a fence. Doesn't walk over the rock. Doesn't walk over the water as well. And you'll notice that nothing happens when I actually step on the actual door of the tent. Which brings me to the next thing. There's no door. We got to make a door. Now, there's a good reason why they didn't put a door on this particular tile set. It's because a door usually comes with animations, and an animation will, well, it takes more than one image to make an animation. And usually animations are handled by events, because you hit a door, then what's supposed to happen? Well, you're supposed to teleport your player to a new map. So you hit a door that's in front of a pub, you're supposed to then get transported inside the pub, which I could imagine would be a brand new map. Well, I know it is. Yeah. So let's go ahead and switch to our event view. And then find an appropriate spot on the tile for a door. So I'll double click. And then you'll notice that there's a whole new page for this. There's a few things that we'll get into later that it's a little bit more advanced, like these switches, variables, and self switches. But for now, let's just go into graphic. And again, they already have pre-selected icons for you and sprites. Just look for the one that says door. And just choose one that you like. And click OK. So let's test play this. Let's move our character in front of that pub. And there's your door. Pretty easy, right? It's really easy. And as you can see, there's really no programming really required. But, oh, let's go back into it. I actually wanted to show you this. Now, about events, because this is an object, when you hit the Z key on your keyboard, nothing happens, because there's nothing tied to it at the moment. So let's change that. Of course, I don't have another map to teleport to, but just so you can see how events work, just double-click on the event, double-click on anywhere in Contents, and you'll have the equivalent to scripting or your programming wizard. These have actions or these are just a set of actions that you can do with your objects, with your events and NPCs. So if you want to say show a text when you click on this object, when you do you want a set of choices like yes and no to open the door, teleport, save, anything like that. Switches, which are controlled over here, change your gold, armor, label, jump your character, move your character, transfer your character, wait a few seconds, tint the screen, everything like that. And we'll get into that a little bit in the next video, but for now, let's go ahead and double click on Contents again and click Show Text. And we're going to have the text, the door is locked. Click OK. And so when you talk to that door, you'll get the message the door is locked. But let's take it another step further. Let's double click on the message just so we could get something on top, or an event on top of the action that we chose. Let's find play sound effect. And let's find one for door. You know what, maybe lock. Maybe open. Okay. There you go. That's a good one. So now, everything in the content pane will play in sequential order. So from the very top, what's going to happen is you're going to hear a sound effect, and then the very next thing you're going to see is a text that says the door is locked. So let's go ahead and test this. So we go to the door, we're going to talk to it, the door is locked. And you'll see that we could play the event over and over again. And we'll bring this next to, we'll then make this a little bit more complex. We're going to have an NPC, so let's make a sprite by double-clicking anywhere that we want. And then, of course, let's, in the graphic, select an actor, just basically any type of sprite that you want to use. Let's just choose that one. And I want you to focus here on autonomous movement. You could have your sprite move in a particular order on a set route. Maybe you want this character to run from left to right only, or you want him to move a little random, just like any other NPC does. You could do that. And of course, if you could even have her say something when you do talk to her. So let's have her say, "The door to the bar is locked. Would you like a key?" And you'll see on the left side that there's a face graphic. And as you can imagine, it's to put a face in the message box that you want to display with. So if you double click on it, you'll have a set of faces that are already drawn into your system, or that come with the system. You'll see that in Actor 2, there is a face that already matches our actor. And so it's a really nice touch. It's not necessarily required, but if you really wanted to put a face there, you can. And for the sake of this tutorial, we will. You could also preview your message, and you can see how it looks before you actually test it in game. But one of the things that you'd have to watch out for is how long your message will be. And what I mean by that is, if you could see on the right side that there are 2 arrow marks that point down. These are kind of markers that stop you, or that tell you that this is the end of the line. The first one is for if you have a face graphic. So if you have a face here, you could only type up to, or you should only type up to here before your characters start getting cut off. And I'll add some A's at the end and you'll see. And you can see there that the A's don't show up because they pass that initial marker. Now if you didn't have a face, I'm wrong. Well, if you didn't have a face, you should still, you have more room to work with. But let's go ahead. You know what? I'm kidding. I'm completely wrong. I do apologize. I'm kind of just winging this. I guess it doesn't matter. Well, just stop right there, okay? Just ignore what I'm about to say about that, but you always want to stop your text right around the first marker. Now, the next thing I wanted to get into was about choices, because obviously here's a question here. The question is, would you like a key? Let's press OK. Now, if you just start this right now, when you do talk to her, she'll ask you, would you like a key? And of course, your choices would be yes or no. So if you double click under it, go show choices, and you'll have the option to do up to 4 choices and branch out to additional choices if you'd like. And we'll get into that part later, but for the sake of easiness, let's just say, let's put the first one as yes, give me the key, no, I hate keys. Yeah, why not? And you'll see that there are events under these. Again, it is branching out because of your choices. So if you want to say no and you don't want nothing to happen after that, you could leave it blank. But you could also show a text that will only work if you hit no and have her say, fine. I don't care. Click OK. And if she says yes, she'll give you a key. Now, we'll have to talk about switches and items in order for this yes to work, but let's go ahead and test play this now and see how this actually looks. So we have our game, and our character is randomly moving. talk to the door, it's locked. We talk to the NPC, and there are your choices. So again, we'll hit yes. Nothing happens because we didn't program anything into it. We'll talk to her again. No. An event that played out right under that event as well. Plays exactly how we actually did it. So